My wife's sister thinks she owns the world because she married money. I learned this the hard way on a Tuesday that started with burnt coffee and ended with my life in shambles. Danny, you need to understand something, Jessica said, standing in my kitchen like she owned it. Her designer heels clicked against the linoleum I'd installed myself. Some people are meant for bigger things. I'm a plumber. Been one for 15 years. Good at it too. But Jessica looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. My wife Sabrina sat at our kitchen table, avoiding my eyes. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. What's this about, Jess? I asked, pouring myself another cup of the terrible coffee Sabrina had made. Sabrina's been accepted to the management program at my husband's company. In California. I nearly choked. What program? Sabrina finally looked up. It's a great opportunity, Danny. Real money. Not like... She gestured around our modest home. Not like what we have here? Jessica smiled like a shark. Exactly. Sabrina deserves better than this. She waved dismissively at our living room, where I'd built custom shelving and refinished the hardwood floors myself. We never discussed California, I said to Sabrina. Because you would have said no, Jessica interrupted. You always hold her back. That stung because part of me wondered if it was true. Sabrina was smart, college-educated. I'd barely finished high school. But we'd been happy. At least, I thought we had been. The position starts next month, Sabrina said quietly. I already accepted. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering against the floor. Neither woman moved to help clean it up. What about us? I asked. That's up to you, Sabrina said. But I'm going with or without you. Jessica's smile widened. Danny, be realistic. What could you possibly offer Sabrina in California? You'd be starting over, no clients, no reputation. She'd be supporting you. I've supported this family for 10 years while Sabrina found herself, I said, anger creeping into my voice. And look how that turned out, Jessica snapped. A plumber's wife in a rental house. We own this house. Barely. Jessica had done her homework. Mortgage payments, credit card debt. Sabrina showed me the books. I stared at my wife. You shared our finances with her? Sabrina shrugged. She's family. That night, Sabrina slept in the guest room. I lay awake staring at the ceiling I'd painted 3 summers ago, listening to her talk on the phone, probably to Jessica, planning my funeral. Word travels fast in a small town. By Thursday, everyone knew Sabrina was leaving. By Friday, they knew she was leaving me behind. Hey, Danny, my buddy Mike called out at the hardware store. Heard Sabrina got that fancy job. Yeah, great opportunity, I said, grabbing the pipe fittings I needed. You moving too? Still figuring it out. But Mike's expression had changed. Cooler. Like I was already gone. At Tony's bar that night, the usual crew was there. Mike, Steve, and Paul, guys I'd known since high school. We'd been meeting every Friday for years. So what's the plan, Danny? Steve asked after we'd ordered our beers. Sabrina wants me to come with her. But, Paul prompted. But I'd have to start over. Leave everything I've built here. Mike shook his head. Man, if my wife got an opportunity like that, I'd pack tonight. Easy for you to say. You work remote. It's not about the work, Steve added. It's about supporting your wife. That's when I realized they'd already chosen sides. In their minds, I was the selfish husband holding back his wife's dreams. She never even discussed it with me, I said. Maybe because she knew you'd react like this, Paul said. React like what? Like you're more important than her career. The conversation went downhill from there. By closing time, I understood that my friends saw me as the villain in this story. The small-minded husband, too, scared to take risks. I drove home to find Sabrina packing boxes in the living room. You're really doing this, I said. I told you I was. And us? She stopped packing and looked at me. Danny, when was the last time we talked about the future? Really talked? I thought about it. We talk all the time. About groceries and bills and whose turn it is to mow the lawn. When did we stop dreaming together? I dream plenty. I want to expand the business, maybe hire an apprentice. That's not dreaming, Danny. That's just more of the same. What's wrong with what we have? Nothing. If you're okay with nothing. The words hit like a physical blow. This is Jessica talking. No, this is me talking. Finally. Sabrina left the following Tuesday. I helped her load the moving truck, played the supportive husband role one last time. Jessica supervised from her Mercedes, making sure I didn't damage anything important. You could still come, Sabrina said as the truck pulled away. But we both knew I wouldn't. 3 weeks later, I was fixing a leak at the community center when I overheard something that changed everything. I heard Sabrina's doing great in California, a voice said. I recognized it as Linda, the town gossip. Oh yes, another woman replied. Jessica was just telling everyone at book club how much happier Sabrina is. Apparently she's already dating someone from work. My wrench slipped, scraping my knuckles raw. Dating? Linda sounded delighted. But she's still married to Danny. Well, not for long. Jessica says Sabrina's filing for divorce next month. She wants to be free to explore her options. I sat in that bathroom stall for 20 minutes, bleeding onto the floor tiles. That night, I called Sabrina. Danny, I was going to tell you. When? After the divorce papers arrived? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Sabrina? Because I heard you're dating your co-worker. Silence. His name is Brad. He's the regional manager. Jesus, Sabrina. Danny, we both know this marriage was over before I left. We were just going through the motions. I wasn't. That's the problem. You never wanted anything more. After she hung up, I drove to Tony's bar. Mike, Steve, and Paul were at our usual table, but when I approached, the conversation stopped. Hey guys, I said, pulling out my chair. Actually, Danny, Mike said, not meeting my eyes. We were just leaving. Come on, I just got here. Look, Steve said, standing up. We heard about Sabrina filing for divorce. What about it? She called Linda, Paul added. Told her how you've been harassing her, calling all hours, making threats. That's bullshit. I called her once. That's not what she said. Mike was gathering his jacket. She's scared, Danny. Scared of what you might do. You guys know me better than that. Do we? Steve asked. Because the Danny we knew would have supported his wife's dreams. The Danny we knew wouldn't have driven his wife across the country to get away from him, Paul added. I felt something break inside my chest. So that's it? 20 years of friendship, and you're just going to believe her lies? They're not lies if they're true, Mike said. They left me sitting alone at our table, 3 full beers growing warm under the neon lights. I spent the next week planning. Not violence. I'm not that kind of man. But Sabrina and Jessica had painted me as the villain, and everyone had bought their story without question. Time to give them a real villain to talk about. I started with research. Jessica's husband, Richard, owned a chain of auto dealerships. Successful, respected, pillar of the community. But success like that often comes with secrets. I found the first secret in the county records. Richard's company had been cited 3 times for odometer tampering, fined, but nothing that made the local news. The second secret came from a former employee I tracked down. Systematic overcharging for repairs, especially targeting elderly customers. The third secret was the best one. Richard was having an affair with his secretary. Had been for 2 years. I gathered everything into a neat package and waited for the perfect moment. That moment came when Jessica announced she was throwing a Support Sabrina fundraiser. Apparently my wife needed money for her fresh start after escaping her abusive marriage. The event was at the country club, all the town's elite invited. I wasn't invited, of course, but I knew the catering staff. Just put this envelope on the auction table, I told my friend Carlos, who was working the event. Someone dropped it off for Jessica. The envelope contained copies of all the documents I'd found, plus photos of Richard and his secretary at a motel outside town. But the real prize was the recording. I'd called Richard's office, pretending to be a reporter investigating auto dealer fraud. His secretary, thinking she was protecting him, had given me an earful about how the whole family operated, including Jessica's little habit of skimming from the company's charity donations. The recording was only 5 minutes long, but it was enough. I parked across the street and watched through the country club's windows as Jessica opened the envelope during her speech. Watched her face go white, then red, then white again. Watched her stumble through the rest of her presentation while whispers spread through the crowd. By morning, the story was all over town. By afternoon, it was online. By evening, Richard's dealerships were surrounded by protesters and news vans. Jessica called me, screaming, "You bastard, you destroyed my family!" "Funny," I said. "I thought I was just sharing the truth." "Isn't that what you did to me?" "This is different." "How?" "Those were private matters." "So was my marriage, but that didn't stop you from turning the whole town against me." Jessica was crying now. "Richard's talking about divorce. The business is ruined. How could you do this?" "Easy," I said. "I learned from the best." I hung up and poured myself a beer. Outside, my neighbor was mowing his lawn. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that sometimes the quiet guy next door has been pushed too far. Sabrina called an hour later. "Danny, what did you do?" I told the truth. You remember truth, right? It's that thing you used to care about. Jessica's destroyed. Richard left her. She's got nothing. Now she knows how it feels. This isn't you, Danny. You're right. The old Danny would have just taken it, would have let you and your sister destroy his life and said nothing, but the old Danny was a fool. People are saying terrible things about our family. Our family? Sabrina, you divorced me, remember? You don't get to claim family when it's convenient. She was quiet for a long time. I never meant for things to go this far. Yes, you did. You and Jessica wanted me gone, wanted me painted as the villain so you could feel good about abandoning our marriage. Well, congratulations. You got what you wanted. Danny. Goodbye, Sabrina. I changed my phone number the next day. 6 months later, I was installing a new kitchen sink when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Sabrina standing on my porch, looking older and tired. "What do you want?" I asked through the door. "To talk, please." I let her in, but didn't offer coffee. "You look good," she said, glancing around. I'd remodeled the kitchen, updated the living room. The house looked better than it ever had. "What do you want, Sabrina?" "I came to apologize." I waited. "You were right about Jessica, about everything. She was using me to hurt you, and I was too blind to see it." "Where's Brad?" Sabrina's face crumpled. "Gone. Turns out he was married too. His wife found out and called my boss. I lost the job." "So you came crawling back." "I came to make amends, to tell you that I know what I lost." "And what was that?" "A good man who loved me." I looked at this woman I'd shared 10 years of my life with. She was still beautiful, still the person I'd fallen in love with. But something inside me had changed during those months of betrayal and isolation. "You're right," I said. "You did lose a good man. But that man doesn't exist anymore." "Danny, please. I know I hurt you, but we could try again. Start over." "Like you started over with Brad?" She winced. "I made mistakes." "No, Sabrina. Mistakes are accidents. What you did was deliberate. You chose to believe your sister's poison. You chose to abandon our marriage. You chose to humiliate me in front of the entire town. I was confused. You were selfish and cruel, And now that your great adventure has blown up in your face, you want to come back to safe, boring Danny. Tears were streaming down her face now. I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of not being alone. There's a difference. I walked to the door and opened it. Goodbye, Sabrina. She stood there for a moment, maybe hoping I'd change my mind. When I didn't, she walked past me and out of my life for the second and final time. I watched her drive away, then went back to installing the sink. It was a good sink, solid construction, built to last. Like everything else in my house now, built for one person who knew exactly what he wanted and wasn't settling for less. The doorbell rang again an hour later. This time it was Mike, Steve, and Paul, standing awkwardly on my porch like teenagers asking forgiveness. We heard Sabrina was back, Mike said. She's gone. For good? Steve asked. For good. Paul shifted uncomfortably. Look, Danny, we wanted to say we're sorry about how we treated you. We should have listened to your side. Yes, you should have. So, are we good? Mike asked hopefully. I looked at these men who'd been my friends for 20 years, who'd abandoned me the moment things got complicated, who'd believed lies because it was easier than standing by someone they'd known their whole lives. No, I said. We're not good. Come on, Danny, Steve said. We made a mistake. You made a choice, just like Sabrina did, just like Jessica did. You all chose to believe I was the kind of man who would threaten and harass his wife. After knowing me for decades, that's what you thought of me. We were wrong, Paul said. Yes, you were. And now you have to live with that choice, just like I had to live with the consequences of your betrayal. I started to close the door, then stopped. You know what the funny thing is? Sabrina was right about one thing. I never did dream big enough. I thought small-town loyalty and friendship meant something. I thought marriage vows were sacred. I thought people would give you the benefit of the doubt if you'd earned it. Danny, Mike started, but I'm dreaming bigger now. I'm dreaming of a life without people who abandon ship at the first sign of trouble. I'm dreaming of friends who actually deserve the name. I'm dreaming of a woman who sees my worth instead of my limitations. I smiled at their shocked faces. Thanks for teaching me to dream bigger, guys. Now get off my property. I closed the door and went back to my sink. Perfect fit, level installation, no leaks. Sometimes the best revenge is simply building something better than what you had before.